Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today, we are going to be talking about 5 trades that I think the Blazers must make this offseason. The Blazers are in sort of a tricky situation where they have players that don't exactly fit the timeline or the positional need of this roster. You have players like Robert Williams, who could seemingly be a starting center on some teams in the NBA, but is currently the third-string center behind Deandre Ayton and Donovan Clingan. You also have players like Anthony Simons, who aren't exactly old or veterans by any means, but considering most players on this team are around that 19 to 20-year-old range, he is a bit older than the rest of them. Deandre Ayton also falls into this category, and so today we're going to be talking how exactly do these players fit long term and what teams could I see them being traded to. I have 5 trades that I'm going to propose to you guys, and these aren't super solidified trades in the sense of all the details as far as second round picks and salary filler and stuff like that, but I have the frameworks of a few different trades that I personally would like to see, and so make sure to comment below. Let me know what you think about these, or even comment some of your own trade ideas. But before we get into that, there's been some recent rumors actually this morning of the time of this recording that the Blazers are expected to move at least one of Jeremy Grant or Anthony Simons this offseason, and that was from Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian. Aaron Fentress is one of the reporters here in Oregon for the Blazers, and he has reported that it seems like the Blazers want to move one of those 2 players. This was also picked up by Evan Siddery, who reported that the Blazers' goal is to trade Jeremy Grant or Anthony Simons before the season begins, and that the Lakers are one known team with interest in Jeremy Grant, and plenty of other teams would be interested by Anthony Simons. Now, I already had these trades kind of planned out, but it's fun seeing these rumors come out just as confirmation pieces in a way to what I've kind of been noodling around, you could say, for a while about what players fit this team long term and what players need to be traded. But with that out of the way, let's just get into the first trade, and that is Jeremy Grant to the Lakers. Now, Jeremy Grant and the idea of him being traded is nothing new, right? There were ideas that he'd be traded at the trade deadline this last year, and he definitely just doesn't fit the timeline, right? If I'm not mistaken, he's one of, if not the oldest person on this Blazers team, unless I'm missing someone, and he just doesn't fit the timeline long term. You can imagine he probably wants to go out there, compete for a championship, at least compete in the playoffs, and so I don't think that him being on this Blazers team is exactly what he would desire long term. Now, it is interesting because if you look at even social media posts or what have you, Jeremy Grant definitely seems happy here in Portland. He has his family here, and it's kind of a lot, obviously, for NBA players to pack up everything and move to a different city. And so if Jeremy Grant's happy here, then it might be a little bit harder trying to trade him if he himself doesn't necessarily want out. But I think the Los Angeles Lakers just make too much sense for him, and in this proposed trade that I made, the Blazers would get back Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Cam Reddish, and 2 first-round picks in return. Now, the holdup with a trade to the Lakers has been that the Blazers want 2 first-round picks in return, and the Lakers only want to give up 1 first-round pick. And so obviously, if both teams were in agreement on that, then I don't think Jeremy Grant would still be on the Lakers, right? If the Lakers were willing to give up 2 first-round picks, I think the Blazers probably would have dealt him a few weeks ago. And if the Blazers only wanted 1 first-round pick, then the trade probably would have happened recently anyways, right? In this scenario, though, I kind of meet it in the middle where the Blazers get 2 first-round picks in return, but the one in 2031 is a top 10 protected pick. Now, that seems a little bit more in the middle and something that the Lakers might be able to handle, where if it's, a pick 11 through 30 or whatever, then the Blazers would get it. But if it's in the top 10, the Lakers would be able to hold on to it. And so if they are really bad in 2031, they would get to hold on to that pick. And as far as the players go, Rui Hachimura is really the main piece that you're getting back. Gabe Vincent and Cam Reddish just make the money work in this trade. But Rui Hachimura is someone who's still a bit younger. I believe he's 23 or 24. Somewhat fits the timeline and would probably come in and either start or be one of the first players off the bench for this Blazers team, which would be very cool. Rui Hachimura is someone that I think the Blazers should have tried to go after maybe in the last year or so, but never ended up doing so. And so seeing him on the team and being either a 6-man or the starting small forward or power forward alongside Denny Avdia would be a lot of fun to see. Now, I almost made this a separate trade, but this is still to the Lakers and involves Jeremy Grant, so I just kind of put it as a sub point here to the first trade, and that would be Jeremy Grant and Robert Williams being traded for the Lakers, as they need a backup center who's a little bit more consistent than some of the other guys on their team, and so I could definitely see them wanting Robert Williams. But this trade really doesn't do much else than the first one I mentioned, as in it the Blazers would get back Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Jared Van Vanderbilt, and then 2 unprotected firsts. So essentially all that would be different in this one is that the Blazers would get back Jared Vanderbilt instead of Cam Reddish to help make the money work, and then would get 2 unprotected firsts as opposed to 2 firsts where one of them is unprotected and the other's top 10 protected. Now that might even be a long shot thinking that Robert Williams has that much value, but despite what the league might be saying, I really do think that Robert Williams still has quite a bit of value. He's a near defensive player of the year caliber kind of guy, and so seeing him fetch a little bit of value, I don't think that the Blazers should just dish him out for nothing. You should definitely look for some sort of value in return for him, and so being able to at least get the protections lifted off that 2031 first and get Jared Vanderbilt back as a backup power forward would be really cool and would kind of help smooth things out on this roster, I believe. Now the second trade that I have involves Anthony Simons being traded to the Orlando Magic. Now I've talked about this a little bit before in my Anthony Simons and why he should or shouldn't be traded video. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll make sure to link it down in the description below. You can go check that out. But I mentioned Orlando as a team that just makes so much sense for someone like Anthony Simons, right? They have their 2 stars in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, and Anthony Simons just makes so much sense on that team. He could be their 3rd star and could provide an offensive punch that team just seems to not have right now. Anthony Simons can shoot the ball. He's lights out from 3-point. He's, I believe, a career 38% 3-point shooter, and so if he can help space the floor and just take defensive attention away from their other 2 stars, then I think that would help benefit that team tremendously. Anthony Simons this last season had a top 5 rating in on-ball gravity, which essentially meant that when he had the ball, he pulled defenses away and towards him at the 5th highest rate, and that's up there with players like Luka, Jalen Brunson, Damian Lillard even, and some of these star players, right? And so if he can pull defensive away because he's that much of a threat when he has the ball in his hands, you can only imagine how much that would open up the lanes for people like Paolo and Franz. Now in this trade, I have the Blazers getting back Anthony Black and 2 first-round picks from the Magic, and then whatever salary would make it work, because obviously Anthony Black is still on a rookie contract. Anthony Simons is making about $25 million a year, and so the money doesn't work with just that alone, and so there would have to be some other ways to make the money work, whether that's getting a 3rd team involved or even involving someone like Wendell Carter Jr., and maybe the Blazers give back someone like Robert Williams. Not exactly sure how that would work. Again, as I mentioned at the top of the video, this is really just a framework for a deal, and then it would kind of be up to the general managers to really piece together the connecting pieces that get this trade done and across the finish line. But ultimately, I think that Anthony Black and 2 first-round picks for Anthony Simons is fair value. Anthony Black had a decent rookie season, but as the 6th pick, you would have probably expected a little bit more from him, and 2 future first-round picks in return. And that might seem like a lot of value for a player of Anthony Simons, but when you consider just how good of a season he's coming off of and how much he would help this Magic team really push for a deep playoff run, I think that would be worth it. And Anthony Simons is still on the younger side, and so would definitely fit the timeline a lot better alongside some of their other players. This 3rd trade I have, I know I already mentioned this guy, but Robert Williams, I could see him being traded to a team like the Grizzlies or the Pistons. Both these teams have some cap space they could absorb him into, and the Blazers in return would just get salary filler and a couple of 2nd-round picks. This could be either dead money, expiring contracts or what have you, but ultimately I think that if the Blazers are able to land a few higher-end 2nd-round picks and some decent salary filler for Robert Williams, you would get the benefit of clearing up your center rotation and allowing Duop Reith to kind of receive some of those 3rd-string emergency minutes, so to say. And so I think that benefit on top of the value that you would get with the 2nd-round picks and salary filler that you could potentially even reroute to another team would be enough value and would be worth it, and would make it worth it, I should say, to move off of Robert Williams. And I know before I mentioned that Robert Williams should have some value, but I think there is kind of a middle line there where you have to understand that if the Blazers aren't receiving many compelling offers from teams, then at some point you just have to get rid of him for what you're able to get. And if you can get a few 2nd-round picks and salary filler, and clear up that center rotation like I mentioned before, I think that would be more than worth it. The 4th trade I have involves Matisse Thybulle being traded to either the Orlando Magic or the Dallas Mavericks. Now the Mavericks make a lot of sense for Thybulle, right, as he signed with them last offseason, but the Blazers had his bird rights, and so they matched his contract, ended up signing him for that 3 years, $33 million contract, and now he has gone through that year period where he isn't allowed to be traded to the Mavericks, and so the Blazers could trade him right now. I think the Mavericks would still have interest in Matisse Thybulle. I don't think he'll be able to fetch you much value. You would probably have to get someone like Maxi Kleber back and just some 2nd-round picks to make the money work, and aside from that, I don't think he would hold much value around the league. He's a good bench defender, but especially on this current Blazers lineup, he doesn't really fit the mold or anything that this team is doing going forward. And I think Matisse Thybulle even would probably just benefit and flourish better on another team. Similar to Robert Williams, I don't think he has very much value. And so if you're able to get a few second round picks, some salary filler, and just kind of clear up minutes for guys like Chris Murray, Ryan Rupert as they develop, Jabari Walker, etc., that would be more than worth it for a guy who, again, doesn't have much value around the league. And trade number 5, I was kind of struggling to find good trades that I thought would be fun, but also realistic, and finding teams that would want this guy. But my 5th trade involves Deandre Ayton being traded to the Toronto Raptors. Now in this trade, the Blazers would get back Jakob Poeltl, Chris Boucher, and a first round pick, and maybe a second round pick on top of that. The money would work well with this trade, and I think if the Blazers are able to get back a first round pick on top of some sort of value player wise for Deandre Ayton, just given his age, that would be a huge benefit and a huge win. Jakob Poeltl is someone who could obviously be a starter, and I believe is the starting center for the Toronto Raptors, but he could come in and be a backup center off the bench behind Donovan Clingan. Especially if Donovan Clingan has a great rookie season, which just based off of how he did in Summer League, I could totally see him being one of those near all defender level kind of players and would be ready to be the starting center in just his sophomore season. And I think Jakob Poeltl is someone who might be making a lot of money, and I almost tried to get this trade to work with Kelly Olynyk, as Kelly Olynyk would be a much better backup center in that sense and would just fit better as a backup center. But Jakob Poeltl makes the money work a lot easier, and so if the Raptors are able to and are willing to part with him, then I think that he would fit in well on this Blazers team as a backup, and Chris Boucher would just kind of be there to make the money work. If you can get some sort of first round pick value in return for Deandre Ayton, given the season that he just came off of, I think that would be huge. Maybe there's some protections on the picks or what have you, but ultimately I think that if you're able to get some sort of backup center style player for Deandre Ayton to fit long term alongside Donovan Clingan on top of some sort of pick value, then that would be extremely beneficial. And if you're the Blazers, you have to take a trade like that. The only question is, do they want to move off of Deandre Ayton, and if so, what kind of value are they receiving in return from the rest of the NBA? So those are the trades that I have, and again, in recent light of this Jerami Grant Lakers trade, I will definitely be making a video on Jerami Grant being traded if he does get moved. Same thing with Anthony Simons. If either of those guys get traded in the coming days or weeks, I'll try to get a video out as soon as possible. And so if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe and even turn on the notification bell. That'll help you get notified anytime I upload. And again, we are on that road to 1,000 subscribers. I might be doing a giveaway once we hit 1,000. And so if you want to be a part of that, just make sure to subscribe. That's all you'll have to do to enter. And yeah, details to come on that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this video, kind of the longer form, not as many cuts in the audio, but let me know what you think of this style. And if you want more videos just talking about the Blazers and general trade discussions, if you're a fan of another team like the Lakers, comment below, let me know what videos you'd want to see. I definitely want to branch out a little bit in that sense and not just be a sole Trailblazers channel, but just talk NBA in general moving forward. And so let me know what you think, comment below. And if you're still here, man, check out one of my recent videos, and I appreciate you so much. But I hope you have a great rest of your day, and until next time, see you later.